If you've played Terraria Calamity mod, you know how difficult, frustrating, and frankly unfair it can be at times. So for my latest challenge, being the masochist that I am, I decided to do Master Mode Death Mode. Keep in mind, the hardest difficulty of Calamity I've done before is Expert Revengeance. Strap in, gamers, because this is going to be a challenge. What? So I enter my world, and the first thing I do is enable Death Mode. Now this will stay on for the entire playthrough. I don't touch this again. Basically, what Death Mode is a harder challenge for the more experienced and for those who want to step up from Revengeance mode. It isn't for the faint of heart. And with Master Mode, it's insane. So we start off by opening our starter bag. Now I do have a couple extra mods on, such as Alchemist NPC Light and Vein Miner. Just some little things, but nothing significant like Wing Slot. So I start cutting down some trees with my absolutely insane movement speed, feeling like Sonic over here with the Calamity mod. I dive very quickly to some blue slimes and wolfram enemies. I start digging down and getting some ores. Now this playthrough is going to be very large and there's a lot of stuff to cover, so I'm going to skip out on some details because, I mean, there's Post-MOONLORD stuff. This playthrough was 31 hours long in total, which I know some people in the comments will, 31 hours, that's nothing compared to my world. I've had 200 hours. But here's my counter to that. I don't remember asking. If you have Revengeance or Death Mode enabled, you get Rage and Adrenaline. We'll talk about Adrenaline later. Rage, basically, if you're near an enemy, it will fill up. Once it's full, you can pop it, and for a short period of time, you do extra damage. After mining a bit and dying underground, I make a little house, something to call home, and I make some armor and extra tools, find some life crystals, find a gold chest with a magic mirror in it. We can now go home without dying, and soon after, I get brutally murdered. I get a Craw Carapace, which actually is pretty decent, gives you a good amount of defense. After forcefully being sent home, I now have a full set of platinum armor, a platinum pickaxe, and a platinum bow. As I said, things go very quickly, plus 30 extra bars and 60 extra silver. Found some Hermes boots, some new weapons, and I decided to adventure the skies with a gravity potion. Here I found the big planet that Calamity features, and this is just one of the labs that feature in Calamity that you do need to find for certain weapons and for a certain boss later on. But I find more life crystals up here. I mine a lot of iron because Vein Miner makes mining these planets full of iron very easy. I then found the Sunken Sea, which is a biome under the desert added in Calamity, but enemies don't spawn here until I've defeated a certain boss. I then started to set up magic storage. That is one of the mods that I added. It's just to help with storage with a crafting interface, which means all my crafting stations go into the blue interface and I can craft everything from that. I then found a desert temple in the desert, which had a magic carpet in it. This is 1.4.3 by the way, so there is no transmutation, there's no shimmer, so that makes it a little bit harder, but it'll be fine. So I made my way over to the jungle. There are a few things I'm gonna want here. Quickly found some feral claws to make my enchanted sword and Terra Grim swing faster. I then made some monstrous knives, which are like really weak vampire knives. They weren't that good. They don't lifesteal much. Calamity really nerfed lifesteal. Back in the jungle, I found this weird abandoned village. I don't know what this is. It doesn't really have anything here, but it's cool. And now a blood moon rises. Now you can definitely see here the increase of enemies and how big of a difference it is, because this blood moon is insane. So I just whacked enemies. I quickly got a money trough. Now there's one thing in particular I was looking for in the jungle, and that's a sharpening station, and I did find one, and that just boosts armor penetration for all melee weapons. I then smashed a couple hearts in the crimson, and then I made a pretty big arena for the Eye of Cthulhu, and then I did some fishing for some potions. Buffed up and summoned the Eye of Cthulhu. Now I'm going to be using enchanted sword mostly for this, and I'm also using the tendon bow. Now here's a good time to explain adrenaline. So adrenaline is the green bar alongside rage. In order to fill up the bar, the player can't get hit for a certain amount of time while fighting any boss. It only goes up during a boss fight. There are two functionalities to the adrenaline: your 200% damage boost, and also if you get hit with your adrenaline full, it will half the amount of damage that you take. So I pop my adrenaline whenever I can against against the Eye of Cthulhu. Not getting hit is pretty difficult, but it does happen. Now, the Eye of Cthulhu does not do much damage to me. My defense is very high with iron skin, platinum armor, and a bar statue. So the Eye of Cthulhu goes down to me very quickly. And now we have the Shield of Cthulhu, a dash, very helpful. And then a goblin army spawns. I make surprisingly quick work of them in Master Mode, Death Mode. It really was no issue. I pop a Hunter Potion and quickly find the Goblin Tinkerer, bound underground. Poor nerd. And then I make some Frost Spark boots. I go to the underground desert and find a desert medallion. This is the next boss. Technically, it might be the first boss. Oh well. But before that, I decided to fight the King Slime. Freaking huge. Now, the King Slime in Revengeance mode and Death mode has a second phase where he spawns a crown jewel that shoots projectiles at you. It's really no issue. It only did like 10 damage to me if I got hit, and it's not too hard to dodge. So I make quick work of the King Slime, no problem. I make a quick arena in the desert and summon the Desert Scourge. The Desert Scourge is just a worm boss. There's nothing special about him. He rams you a bit. He'll like dash at you, but it's really not even scary. And with that, we get the Urchin Mace. I tested it against the Eye of Cthulhu, and I mean, it's okay. But I was fighting the Eye of Cthulhu for a rare drop called the Teardrop Cleaver. Now, this used to be dropped in Malice mode, but they removed Malice mode. So now it's just a 10% drop on Revengeance or Death mode. And it's pretty good. It makes enemies really slow when you hit them. So its debuff is really helpful. But another goblin army arrived. So I made quick work of them. No issues. Go back where you came from. You don't belong here. I swear I'm not xenophobic. Anyway, I made some new houses for varying people of different cultures. And I used some bombs to blow up a bigger arena for the Brain of Cthulhu, just to be safe. I don't know what Death mode will bring. I've never done Death mode before. That's right. I've never done Death mode before, and I'm doing Death mode Master mode. So, I mean, I was scared of Death mode. I never wanted to do Death mode. Revengeance was hard enough. I did Revengeance on Rogue, and that was difficult. Death mode and Master mode. Jeez. But I spawned the Brain of Cthulhu. I test a few weapons to see which one's the best. I end up going for the Teardrop Lever. Ends up being pretty much the best. The Urchin Mace actually does do a bit. It has infinite pierce, so eventually all the eyeballs are destroyed, and it's just the Brain of Cthulhu. And at this point, I'm just swinging a sword, and if it gets close, I'll just hit it back. Like, the only dangerous parts are when it goes underneath me, and that's fine. When he's on a slither of health left, he starts going kinda hectic. He kinda goes insane, starts dashing into you, but my defense is very high, so I'm not too scared. It's fine. And that's it. Brain of Cthulhu, very simple, very easy. And so I make some Crimtane armor and a Deathbringer pickaxe. I make some houses in the jungle, gotta get those pylons, and I continue my elevator. And eventually I made it to hell. And mining hellstone with ore extractinator, you guessed it, it's very quick. So I ended up with 900 hellstone and a hell forge. I then made some Terra Spark boots. I just crafted all the things to make it. And then I made a fiery greatsword. Rest in peace, fiery greatsword has been replaced with Volcano. Volcano is so much stronger than this thing, but this thing is very large. In Calamity, they made it very large, so it's actually pretty good. So the next boss, not quite the next boss, I kind of skipped this one, but we're gonna do it now, is Crabulon. Fought in the glowing mushroom biome. He shoots a bunch of projectiles up, they fall down. He hurts quite a bit. I actually got the quarter health, but that's because I was just tanking the fight. I didn't take it too seriously, but it does give me the fungal clump, which life steals. I then found a meteorite and extremely quickly extractinated it, and I made a little arena in the surface crimson. This is for the perforators. This is a Calamity boss. It's a little difficult. It did take me a few tries on Revengeance, so we'll see how long it takes me here. How it works, when the perforators get down to a certain amount of health, it'll spawn in its worms. I did die pretty quickly. That one was not a great run. Then an acid rain event started, so I went down to the desert and got a magic conch and went over to the sulfurous sea biome. The sulfurous sea just replaces one of the oceans. I just fought all the enemies until the acid rain was cleared. Then another goblin army decided to come. They want revenge, I guess, but they'll never get it because I'm too powerful. And I also have the power of a god in the fact that I can just respawn. Made some more houses because there are a ridiculous amount of NPCs with this mod and the Alchemist NPC mod. Attempt 2 at the perforators. This one should go better. Now it is harder since I'm doing mainly true melee. I just need to keep my distance, dodge the projectiles. Now Calamity loves adding bosses that shoot hard to dodge projectiles. Now the first worm is down. Now the perforator also puts down this sludge that if you walk on damages you. And now the next worm has spawned and I die very quickly after that. Now trust me when I tell you, Calamity bosses are much harder than vanilla most of the time. And then another goblin army arrives. Oh my gosh, I'm starting to think that they like me. I don't know. I'm feeling a little bit of chemistry here. They keep coming back for me. There's a little bit of chemistry chemistry between me and the goblin peons, you know, right before I brutally murder them. I summon the perforators once more. Now, hopefully I can actually beat it this time. I do beat the first worm pretty easily. Now the second worm is spawned. I need to watch out for the projectiles that the hive spawns and for the things on my platform. It is hard to see his projectiles. They're quite transparent, and with the rain especially, it makes it very hard to see. I got down to 2 health, but I get the healer. I do kill the next worm, and then I proc the final worm. I am super low. It's getting close. I just need to stay alive at this point. I was a quarter heart health, but I did manage to regenerate a little bit of my health back. Very close fight. It's getting a bit ridiculous at this point. Down to 2 hearts again, but finally the last worm goes down, and all that's left is the perforator hive. I get adrenaline last second and make quick work of the hive. Really close fight, but with that I do get the bloody worm tooth. After that I am able to mine aerolite ore. You're only able to mine it after the perforators, but there's not too much I want to do with aerolite. The only thing I really want from it are the skyline wings, but there's also a weapon I can make with aerolite, which is the broken biome blade. Now this is a very interesting weapon. It works differently depending on what biome you attune it to. Another blood moon happens, and I accidentally spawned the perforator hive since the crimson is so close to my base. Killed me very quickly. Then I did it again. I then went down and fought the giant clam in the sunken sea, and the sea king spawned from it. I found the sunken sea lab. With the sunken sea lab, I'm able to decipher the sunken sea encrypted schematic with a code breaker. It's all some mumbo jumbo, but with all that, I am able to make a gorse dagger. If you've never played Calamity, this stuff might sound like absolute gibberish to you, but I swear it all makes sense to someone out there. But now it's time for the next boss. Calamity adds this giant hive in the jungle, and that's a perfect arena for the queen bee. I use mostly my biome blade with the crimson attunement to lunge into the queen bee and do some hectic damage. Pretty quickly, the queen bee is no match. No issues here. All right, now for the next boss, and that is Skeletron. Now, I did make a bit of a mistake, boys. I didn't record the fight, so yeah. Instead, I equipped the Clothier doll and killed the Clothier, and now you can watch the death mode Skeletron fight, which is interesting because he has 4 arms like Skeletron Prime. They don't shoot things though, but yeah. I also made a wind blade, which actually is a really good weapon. And yeah, just like expert mode Skeletron, you do have to destroy all the hands before you can do any damage to the head. This one is actually, you can't do any damage. It does 0. And then once the hands are destroyed, he starts shooting his homing skulls and also this big like shotgun of skulls. He also teleports around in death mode. And then once you get him to around a 3rd health left, then he spawns his hands back, and you have to destroy them again before doing any damage to him, which was completely fine. I mean, Skeletron's a walk in the park. He was easy claps, and that's Skeletron. But I did go down into the dungeon while it was paused, so now I have a shadow key. That means I am going to go into the abyss to find some items in the chest down in the abyss with the shadow key. Now the abyss is very dangerous. You lose breath very quickly. I did find a chest. They did change these. They used to be in these little houses. Now they're not. But I found a lionfish, which is a rogue weapon, and that's all I can get. Found another one with the ball of fugu. So now we are going to attempt to fight the slime god, who is the 2nd last boss. Honestly, maybe the hardest pre-hard mode boss, I have to say. In death mode, I don't think you can hit the slime god. You have to hit the slimes. I don't really know how this boss works in death mode, but yeah, I just kind of hit everything except the slime god. There ended up being a lot of slimes everywhere. Big slimes, small slimes, and eventually the slime god just despawned halfway through the fight. They just all disappeared. So I guess he's scared of my manliness. He's scared of my absolutely devilishly handsome looks. I get it. I get it. I'd be afraid as well. So I guess I just challenge it again. They split off into a lot of slimes. It gets very hectic. There's just stuff everywhere. The slime god is ramming you. If he hits you, you get debuffed like crazy. I do get adrenaline up and rage up. I don't know if they just changed how this boss works or if that's death mode, but yeah, I didn't actually have to even hit the slime god. I just had to kill all the slimes and the slime god dies. I guess they changed how it worked. But with that, we get some purified gel, which we can use to craft some things, and an electrolyte gel pack, which is a consumable permanent buff for adrenaline. Also, Crabulon dropped a permanent rage buff. And with that, I'm able to make the Geltic blade, which is a very good weapon, very good projectile. I also made a fractured arc, which is very interesting because it gets stronger if you parry, and parrying is if you right click and the sword hits an enemy or a projectile. But I'm looking for one thing in the dungeon, and that is mainly the Muramasa, and eventually I do find it. And I make the Knight's Edge, which which is just much bigger than normal, and it doesn't have the 1.4.4 spinning effect, but it does give a debuff, but it is true melee, so it's quite difficult to hit. Then I get to work making my favorite platform for the Wall of Flesh. Usually I'll skimp out on this. Usually I'll try and survive without a platform, and then if I die, then I'll do it. But I know it's death mode, master mode, so I'm gonna need one. And then after a good while, I have finished my platform. And then I spawn the Wall of Flesh. Now, my main weapons will be the Geltic Blade and the Fractured Arc. The Fractured Arc if I'm feeling a little ballsy, and the Geltic Blade if things are getting a little rough, because I can play more back with the projectile. But I am playing a little greedy, and I do get pretty low, but I just keep my distance with the Geltic Blade. If you do get too far from the Wall of Flesh in this fight, it does pull straight to you, which I guess is the death mode version. The lasers are quite insane, and eventually the death lasers do get the best of me. The death lasers are so deadly. So nothing else to do but try again. Now, the building potion I have is actually going to be very helpful. I'm just not going to tell you why. The Wall of Flesh gets me down to a quarter heart. It's looking very bad. I got to dodge these lasers like a madman, like it's a Matrix. And yeah, I die again. Let's go again. I am not short on voodoo dolls. The voodoo demons have been insane. This time's looking much better. Keeping my distance, making sure I'm not getting hit too much. I do lose a lot of health very quickly, but the Wall of Flesh is very low. Just got to keep dodging those lasers. Something does 100 damage to me. I don't know what. Keep dodging the lasers, and there we go, baby. The Wall of Flesh has been defeated. That is just a third of this playthrough. With that, you guys know what time it is. If you haven't already, subscribe down below. This is a relatively small channel. We are growing rapidly fast, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. I'm at about 40,000 subscribers now, which is just nuts. But we are going for, well, we're going for 50k by the end of the year, but that's absolutely reachable. Like, we're basically there. We're gonna go for 100k by the end of the year. I don't know if we can do 100k, but we can try. Only about 10% of you guys are subscribed. So welcome to hard mode, boys. Now, you don't have to smash demon altars in Calamity. How it works in Calamity is it just gives you Palladium and Cobalt straight away, but you can't get the other ones. Now, the first mechanical boss will be weaker than normal, but you have to defeat the first mechanical boss to get Orichalcum and Mithril, and beat the next one to get Adamantite and Titanium. The problem I had is my hallowed just spawned like in the jungle, so I didn't have a proper hallowed, so I had to make an artificial one because I wanted some pixie wings. And then on maybe my first night in hard mode, I feel vibrations from deep below. Just absolutely ridiculous. Give me a break. And then the destroyer spawns, and holy crap, he is massive. Death mode makes him freaking huge for no reason, and he makes quick work of me. So I go down into the underground and start mining some Palladium and Cobalt, and I make some Palladium armor and a Palladium sword, which is very big, but not great. I then farm some Souls of Light and crystals. I make an Axe of Purity, which purifies my world and also does good damage. Now, with the Axe of Purity and my Palladium armor, I thought I could fight the Destroyer and beat it due to the Axe of Purity's projectile being quite good at piercing. Now, the Destroyer requires a big arena because it's so massive, but basically just don't get hit by the head and you're good. And the probes I make quick work of. It's very interesting trying to not get hit by the Destroyer, considering it's massive and takes up so much. The merchant gets absolutely brutally murdered, and then I end up dying to the head. That was just because of a misplay by me, so it's okay. It's fine. We're good. But I decided before I fight it again, I am going to find a Titan glove from a Mimic. I do some Mimic grinding, which is probably my least favorite thing to do ever. Pretty quickly, I do get a cross necklace and a Titan glove. And with the Titan glove, I make a power glove. But now I decide I'm gonna farm some Crimson Mimics so I can make a Berserker's glove. First, I get the Dart Pistol. Everyone I farm is like 15 souls a night. I do get a Storm Saber from a Cloud Elemental. The next Crimson Mimic drops a Dart Pistol again. I get a Celestial Claymore and some Fetid Bagnax. This took so long, I don't even know if it was worth it. And the next one drops a Life Drain. I spawn another one, and I finally get the Flesh Knuckles, which basically just gives me like 8 extra defense. I am going for warding mostly. I am going for a defense build. Is this the best idea on Master Mode, Death Mode? Maybe not, considering I die so quickly, but I want to take some hits. CJ, actually, damage build is better because you're going to die anyway. Cry about it. I summoned the Destroyer once more, hopefully, for the last time. And yeah, I'm basically not even getting hit here. It's no problem. I just keep an eye on where his head is on the map, and we're good. Destroyer down, baby. And that's Mithril and Orichalcum blessed on this world. Now the pirates invade. Great, I love the pirates. They give you so much stuff. It's so much fun. So much fun. I love it. Eventually, Unfortunately, the pirate invasion falls to me. It just wasted a bunch of my time. Now there are red devils in hell, which will allow me to get flame wings, which give a melee boost. So I farmed some of them. All right, now is time for a boss that I maybe should have done first, but this boss is so hard. It's Cryogen. He's just kind of nuts. Spawns lots of projectiles, hard to hit, dashes at you, and I die very quickly. But I did get a strategy down pretty soon. First, I went to the Brimstone Crag, mined some of the ore, and made some unholy cores to make the Brimstone Sword. I also fought the Wall of Flesh again in an attempt to get a warrior emblem. I didn't. Fought him again, and I did get it. So I fight Cryogen again, and he kills me very quickly. I did like no damage to him. Fight him again. Once again, no dice, but got him down to second phase. But I decided to just increase my platform and then fight it again, and I died very quickly. Let's go again. Once again, got it down very low, but still, it just got the best of me.
Alcohol sickness? What the hell is that?
But eventually, I adapted the strategy to just run left and right. That made it much easier to dodge his attacks, considering the way the projectiles go and the way they travel. I got very low, but I did end up triumphing over Cryogen. Gosh. Finally. And what do we get from Cryogen? Basically nothing. I just wanted to defeat it. Next boss, the Twins. Twins is so easy. Basically, I just used the Brimstone Swords projectile. Very strong. And yeah, I just singled out Rhett at first, which kind of was a mistake, because once Rhett was killed, apparently in death mode or revengeance or something, if you kill one of them, the other one gets very aggro. So once Rhett was killed, I was on full health, but that was soon changed because Rhett started absolutely dashing at me. He wanted me dead. But yeah, all in all, it wasn't that bad. I did make easy work of the Twins, and that is the second mechanical boss down, and now the adamantite and titanium have blessed our world. I also got the special drop from the Twins, but it's a bow, so never gonna use it. Now I go down and mine some adamantite and titanium. I'll spare you the details. And actually, something that did spawn after Cryogen is cryonic ore, but you can't mine it without adamantite pickaxe. So now that we have an adamantite pickaxe, I am able to mine a bunch of cryonic ore. And instead of titanium armor or adamantite armor, I make Daedalus armor from cryonic ore. And I also make a Flare Frost blade, which is a pretty good weapon and inflicts some good debuffs and has a pretty good projectile. So now it's time for Skeletron Prime, the man himself. Now in this fight, I do have to kill all the hands before I can hit the head, just like regular Skeletron. I think this is a really interesting mechanic, and I think it maybe should be in vanilla, considering the consistency between Skeletron and Skeletron Prime there for expert mode. I just had to target the hands until they were destroyed, and then once they were destroyed, I was afraid that they'd come back later on, but now it's just the head, and he has a lot of health on the head left, but mainly using my Brimstone Sword and Flare Frost Sword for the debuff. Now Skeletron Prime, even without the hands, starts shooting lasers and a bunch of homing skulls. Obviously that's not normal, but considering he doesn't have any hands, I am not surprised that they made it do something, but it wasn't too hard. Skeletron Prime does fall to me. Now I'm able to make a mechanical glove and a pickaxe axe, and I make a ponage hammer. I then made the Biome Blade. It's an upgrade from the broken Biome Blade. Works in basically the same way, and the True Knight's Edge. And also the Forbidden Oath Blade. Lots of weapons we're getting. Now my hotbar is mainly filled up with swords. Now apparently I skipped the Aquatic Scourge. I don't know when you meant to fight the Aquatic Scourge, but I'm gonna fight it now. This fight's not that hard. It has a lot of projectiles, but if you use the whole sunken sea as your platform, it's fine. I didn't even have a platform. I just used the whole area. But he does leave behind these projectiles that linger, which is probably the most annoying part, and obviously his teeth that he spits out. Oh, and the gas clouds he produces. Classic Calamity boss where it's just like 5 different things that happen. It's absolute chaos. But the ice attunement for the Biome Blade actually does quite a bit of pierce damage. So for a worm boss, quite strong. And with no issues, the Aquatic Scourge is defeated. Basically, I just wanted to fill up on the relics. I don't even know if I got anything from that fight, but I did get a better necklace for being in water. Now I fight the Queen Slime. Obviously, the Queen Slime isn't meant to be fought at this time, but I don't know what to say. Queen Slime got absolutely smoked. Nothing I really wanted, to be honest, except maybe the mount. Now, another boss that I'm not sure if I was meant to fight now or earlier, the Brimstone Elemental. elemental. You fight her in the Brimstone Crag, and her fight is quite interesting. She teleports around, shoots these projectiles as any friggin' Calamity boss. Every single one shoots projectiles that you have to dodge. But yeah, once again, the ice attunement for the Bone Blade is very strong, and the Flare Frost Blade is pretty damn good. I just used the whole Brimstone Crag to dodge her projectiles. It wasn't too difficult. Just kidding, she killed me. But that was just human error. I can actually beat it. I can beat it this time. Don't worry, guys. I can beat it. She does have quite a few hard projectiles to dodge. I am using the Charm of Myths Philosopher's Stone cheese because it is 1.4.3, so they haven't patched that yet. She shoots this laser that you really don't want to get hit by, and the laser spawns these projectiles in its wake that home in on you. So kind of nuts, but it's not too hard to dodge. But if you don't dodge it, you get punished. Pretty easy overall, and she has been defeated. Nothing I really want though, to be honest. I then make some angel treads, which are just upgraded boots. I then go down to the jungle. Now life fruit spawning. Calamity makes it much easier to make turtle armor, considering the giant tortoise shell can be turned into a normal turtle shell, which is a pretty common drop. So after mining a bunch of chlorophyte and getting some turtle shells, I make some turtle armor. I then buy a rod of discord from the wizard. Much easier way to obtain it. I'll take it. And next is not a great fight. I don't like this fight at all. Calamitous Clone. So it's just a lot of projectiles. Calamitous Clone also dashes at you. It has the bullet hell phase. I swear it's harder than Supreme Calamitus's bullet hell phase. Calamitous Clone just has a ton of health, does a lot of damage. Calamitous Clone spawns in the Clone Brothers. They're not too hard. I beat them pretty quickly. And then now all that's left is Calamitous Clone. Does another bullet hell phase. That's just absolutely hectic, but it's okay. I take a few hits, and with only a slither of health left, Calamitous Clone kills me, which is super frustrating because of how long that fight took. And then made a Catastrophe Claymore, but I'll spare you the details on this fight again because we've already seen most of it. But yeah, we defeat the brothers, and eventually Calamitous Clone is defeated. And it drops a Broken Hero Sword. Now with the Broken Hero Sword, I can make a couple things. The thing I decide to make though is the Arc of the Ancients, which is the Fractured Arcs upgrade, because the Fractured Arc did some insane damage. I wanted the upgrade of it. But I fight Calamitous Clone again in an attempt to get another Broken Hero Sword, but I die. So we fight it again, and I die. But I fight it again, and this time I do defeat it. Now I make a big arena for Plantera, very large. I'm mainly using the Arc of the Ancients, and Plantera isn't too hard. I mean, compared to freaking Calamitous Clone, this is nothing. I just run circles around a textbook Plantera until phase 2. Now she has the vibrating eater hands, which are quite deadly. She also shoots these spores out that do lots of damage, and she ends up killing me because of all of that. But there's nothing else I can really do but fight her again. There is a summon item you can make in Calamity for her, which makes things easier, and then she kills me again. So apparently this boss is not as easy as I thought. We summon her again, we get her down to second phase, and just gotta keep our distance from her. That's really what it is, and as melee, that is difficult to do, but with the Arc of the Ancients, I am able to stay away from her a good amount, and I die again. But we try one more time, and I die again. This boss was actually really difficult, and I die again. Surprisingly, Plantera's never really been an issue for me, but in Death Mode, Master Mode, actually incredibly difficult. I die once more. But this time, I summoned my gamer instincts, and I kept on the move, stayed away from her projectiles, started to learn some of the new things added in Death Mode, and how I need to dodge certain things like the spores, and Plantera falls to me and screams echo from the dungeon. So now we are post-plantera. So I make a Tyrant Yarum's ulti sword, and I head down into the post-plantera dungeon. Now there's not too much I want here except for a paladin's shield, and I also want a paladin's hammer. And eventually, after farming a lot of dungeon enemies, this took a long time, I did get the things I wanted. There's also something else I want, vampire knives. Obviously, life steal has been nerfed in Calamity, as I said, but it's still decent. It can be used. After a lot of exploring, I finally find the vampire knife. I then made an Asgard's Valor. It's a very strong shield and dash. And next is Golem, so I clear out the desert temple. But before that, I summon a solar eclipse. And all I wanted from the solar eclipse was some Mothron wings, which I was not getting. Was it worth all this grind just for some wings? Probably not. I was determined to get them, and it's like sunken cost fallacy. At this point, I gotta keep going. Also, I ate a blood orange, which gave me some more extra health. It's a permanent upgrade. But eventually, I did get the Mothron wings after 4 solar eclipses.
Finally, oh my gosh, man.
And now we are going to do the Frost Moon event. What could I possibly want from this event? The main thing I wanted was the Absolute Zero, which drops from the Ice Queen, which I eventually got, and it's just a projectile sword. It's pretty decent. Now, next up is the Siren and Leviathan, or Anita and Leviathan. This boss is just this giant fish and a siren. Well, they're kind of difficult. The giant Leviathan shoots these huge balls. I don't know what they are. They're meatballs, and they're kind of hard to dodge, but if you have the right trajectory, then you can dodge them. I did get adrenaline up, which shows how, I guess, easy the fight is. It's not too hard. I am able to dodge the attacks quite easily, and I did try and kill the Leviathan first, and then I swapped my attention and I actually killed Anahita first and left the Leviathan for last, which was pretty easy. The Leviathan is not too hard. I popped adrenaline and easy clap. For my first treasure bag, I got the community, which is a 10% drop, and that's the exact reason I did this fight, is for the community. The community gives you insane buffs, and it only gets better with the more bosses you've defeated. I'm gonna be wearing that for basically the rest of the playthrough. Next is a weird boss, Astrum Deus. He's very large. He's fought in the Astral Infection biome, which is just left of my ice biome. It's kind of difficult. He's so large that it's kind of hard to dodge at times. I found that moving left and right made it relatively easy-ish to dodge, but I did end up dying. This boss took a bit of trial and error. It's been a bit since I've fought it, but yeah, basically just utilizing my dodge and utilizing the platform that I have. Although it has a ton of health and it took a while, the boss eventually did die to me. Now that gave me a Starlight Fuel Cell, which permanently increases adrenaline damage by 15% and the damage reduction if you take a hit. All right, now the big man himself, Golem. Very difficult fight. Master Mode Death Mode. Will Golem actually be difficult in any capacity? Let's see. You can only hit his hands for the first phase. I don't know why, but once the hands are destroyed, you can only hit the head. Once the head is destroyed, the head detaches and you have to hit both of them. So I targeted out the head first, and the fireballs are quite hectic. There's a lot of them. This boss is actually a little bit harder than normal, you could say, but I am determined to not die by this boss once. You know, it'll be so embarrassing if I died by the golem. Now I did get kind of low, 200 health, lower, 100 health. Eventually the head did fall to me and all that's left is the body, but the lasers and the fireballs and everything are quite hard to dodge. They're getting quite difficult, but eventually the golem did die, and I didn't die to him once, not even close. Now I can make some beetle armor and beetle wings. Now we are going to fight Duke Fishron. I didn't even set up an arena. I'm gonna attempt to fight it. I do get adrenaline. Duke Fishron is not too hard. We'll see. I did struggle on this in my rogue playthrough on Revengeance. It was actually quite difficult. It took me a while to beat it. So we'll see if it makes any difference being melee and being a better gamer than I was a year ago. I get adrenaline up again. Got rage. Pop it. Do tons of damage. He's now half health. He does get down to second phase. I can't actually see his health bar now for some reason. I can see it under him, but not the big one. And even though he is teleporting and going invisible, I do beat Duke Fishron first try, which definitely didn't happen last time I did it. Now I'm going to attempt to fight the Empress of Light on Master Mode Death Mode. This is going to be difficult. The Empress of Light is never too easy. It's always a bit of a challenge. And this boss had a ridiculous amount of health. Like, I couldn't see him to do any freaking damage to it. Like, I'd done half damage at 1 AM on the fight. So it was turning out to be daytime pretty soon. And daytime Empress of Light in Calamity, it doesn't insta-kill you, but it does just enrage. It does way more damage. So yeah, I ended up dying. I don't know why. It was so tanky. But now I went into the abyss to get some scoria ore. And then I went down into the underground to get some perennial ore. With all those ores together, you can make some life alloy. With the scoria bars, I make a fallen paladin's hammer. And I fight another solar eclipse because I threw away my death sickles to make a soul harvester. I then buy some steampunk wings because they just give better buffs all around than beetle wings. And instead of Empress of Light, I decided to fight the Plaguebringer Goliath. The Plaguebringer Goliath is one hefty boss. Look how sick he looks. He looks so much cooler than he used to. If you don't know, I did a Calamity normal mode playthrough ages ago on my channel. That's some old Calamity content. So technically I have done a Calamity mode playthrough on my channel before, but I wouldn't recommend watching those videos. They're very old and bad. And so Plaguebringer Goliath, he does do some mean damage, but I do have vampire knives to lifesteal back to full health. I'm mainly using the Fallen Paladin's hammer to do some mean damage. And yeah, with the lifesteal at hand, it gets to second phase. It starts shooting some mean projectiles like any Calamity boss does. But with the big arena that I made for Plantera, I was easily able to dodge all the projectiles, and the Plaguebringer Goliath falls to me like any other boss has. Once again, he doesn't really drop anything I want. I'm just beating these bosses for the fun of it, but it does drop some infected armor plating, which I can use to make the Exalted Oath Blade. I have a ridiculous amount of weapons. They're just filling up my friggin' hotbar, but with the encrypted jungle schematic, I'm able to craft the Galvanizing Glaive, which you charge at a power cell charger. And yeah, now with some new weapons, now I decide to fight the Empress of Light. Still having a ridiculous amount of health, but I am doing more damage. It's at around 12 a.m. It's around a third health left, so it's definitely looking better than last time. Now, the Empress of Light I've fought many times. Its projectiles are relatively easy-ish to dodge. You know, you make a mistake here and there, but I do know this boss pretty well. What I get from that? Not much. It does drop the Soaring Insignia, and I did get the Terra Prisma because it just has like a 10% drop chance in Calamity for some reason, but the Soaring Insignia has been nerfed incredibly in Calamity, which makes sense, I guess, because it would make it so that wings are kind of obsolete, like the later wings are obsolete, and it's extremely strong. I'll give it to them. Soaring Insignia is extraordinarily strong. It is an endgame thing, but not in Calamity, so yeah, I get it, but I didn't run Soaring Insignia once in this playthrough, even though I would use it all the time on vanilla. But next up is Ravager. This is like Golem, but if he was on crack. I absolutely hate this boss. It's so hard to do, at least on Revengeance it took me ages, but maybe this time we can do it a bit easier. Now what you have to do is kill all of its parts, and then you can actually do some damage to him. I mean, I don't even know what to say about this fight. You just gotta hit things. You also gotta not get hit by his flesh totems, because they fly at you, and if you touch them, you get hurt. He also has missiles that home in on you and do lots of damage, and also his head will do stuff, and also he has these fountains that shoot projectiles at you, and also he has hands that attack at you. So I think you get why this boss is not my favorite boss of all time. So yeah, I mean, I'll just show you like all my deaths to it. This is when bosses actually start getting pretty damn difficult in this mod. And eventually I got to this run where I kind of got his attacks down to a T. Now the first phase is kind of a mess. You have to destroy all his parts to do any damage to him, but then he starts just slamming down at you, and you have to destroy his head. And I wanted to destroy his head so that it couldn't do any more damage to me, so I singled that out, and then it's just him left that I have to hit. Now with this, what I'd do is I'd let him go above me, and then I'd dash the other way, and it'd slam not on me. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say, man. This boss is just nuts. I just have to play around it. I play in between the flesh totems because they'll just jump up and over me. So if I stay mostly grounded, I'm fine. And there we go. Finally, it's dead. Now, from that, we get Rage, extra 1 second permanent buff. So yeah, now we have the Lunatic Cultist. This boss is a little different. For some reason, he gains these little minions that attack with him, even if you hit the right one. His attacks do mad debuffs, so you do not want to get hit by him. Like the frost one will freeze you. The electric one will give you that electrified debuff, which does so much damage if you move. But yeah, it got a little close. He did have 6 other versions of himself, and he shot these like shadow flame things. It's really nuts, but we did do it first try. Not too difficult. And now the pillars have arrived. So first I go to the Nebula pillar because there's a sword you can make with Nebula fragments. I know, crazy. And I make the Grand Guardian. Now it is true melee, so it's hard to hit, but it's quite strong. And then I defeated the pillar with the Grand Guardian. But next I want to defeat the solar pillar, obviously for some melee weapons. I kind of choose it by putting myself down in a hole of the remainder of a meteorite and just use the Fallen Paladin's hammer. Now if there is a pillar I'm going to choose, it's going to be solar pillar. And not too long after, I do defeat the solar pillar and I make myself a Daybreak. I also make an Entropic Claymore. There's just a lot of weapons you can make, and I don't know which one's good, which one's not good, so I just make them all, you know? I've never done melee on Calamity before. Alright, so the next boss I'm gonna fight is Astrum Deus. The Vortex pillar is in the way of the Astral Infection biome, so I do fight the Vortex pillar next. Now, for some reason, the Vortex pillar enemies multiply like crazy. You can see it's absolutely insane. It started lagging my computer how many enemies were on my screen.
What's going on?
But even with all those enemies spitting at me, I did destroy the Vortex pillar. Alright, so I head over to the Astral Infection biome and I slot a Titan Heart into the Astral Beacon to summon Astrum Deus. Astrum Deus is a relatively large worm boss that just flies around the whole map. Now, the weapon I was mainly using was the Fallen Paladin's Hammer, as it does pierce through lots of pieces. I also used a gravity potion and a gravity normalizer potion, which makes it so that space has regular gravity. Now, the main strategy with Astrum Deus is to just use the whole world as a platform. You just gotta move, especially since he leaves mines around the place. Once you get Astrum Deus to half health, he then spawns a second Astrum Deus. Now you have to defeat 2 of them, which makes the fight significantly harder. I keep using the whole world as my platform, but this boss is super fast. It charges you. Its projectiles are crazy. The lasers, everything, and I end up dying, and I didn't even get it that low. So we try again. Once I get it to second phase, I utilize the same strategies, but I end up dying once again. This boss is the first boss in this playthrough that genuinely caused me a lot of issues. Plantera and Ravager did cause me a few issues. They weren't the easiest bosses ever, but this one, it took me a little while. Now for this next fight, it did become daytime. I didn't reset it to nighttime, so this was bad because Astrum Deus enrages in the daytime. So I died pretty quickly. So another attempt and yet another death. I fight it again, and once again I die. The main issue here is whenever I get hit, I get this astral infection debuff that just absolutely melts my health away. I fight it again, but once again I am a victim to Astrum Deus. Fight it again, and I die to the astral virus. As I said, the astral virus is deadly. Here's a quick montage of me dying to Astrum Deus because I died a lot, and I can make a montage out of it.
What? It's coming right at me. What do I do? Dash away? I can't. Right.
Being the last hard mode Calamity boss, it is obviously quite the challenge. Eventually, I thought something must not be right, so I went onto the guide for Astrum Deus on the Calamity mod wiki. Now, it gives a very important detail. It says that the Celestial Jewel and the Ursa Surgeon help minimize the impact of the astral infection. Now, the Ursa Surgeon completely makes you immune to the astral infection debuff, but it needed to be fished up. So I made a fishing rod with 2 wires and I started fishing. Everyone loves fishing. Now, it took me a while to fish it up, but eventually I did get it. Now, the Ursa Surgeon doesn't only make you immune to astral infection, it also makes you 15% slower, but it gives you 20 defense, which isn't insignificant. And it also increases regeneration at a lower health. So it's actually pretty good accessory for this fight. But now being immune to the astral virus, this fight might actually be much easier now. I fight Astrum Deus until it has split into 2 once again. And I realize after getting hit, I'm taking way less damage. Like, the astral infection actually made a huge difference. I continue using the Fallen Paladin's Hammer. I do get hit pretty hard and I end up dying, but it is looking much better. Also, an annoying thing about Astrum Deus is that the summon is consumable. So I need to farm the Titans for a Titan heart every single time I want to fight this boss. But we summon Astrum Deus for hopefully one last time, and we actually kill one of the split parts of Astrum Deus. It does say Astrum Deus has been defeated, but there is still another one. So I don't know what it's talking about. But with only one left, it does get very angered. It gets super nuts, but I managed to dodge it on the scrape of my teeth. I pop my rage and Astrum Deus falls. Finally. That was easily the hardest fight yet. That took me 2.5 hours to defeat. But trust me, that is only the beginning. I go over to the starter's pillar and destroy the pillar, and now there is the final boss of hard mode awaiting the Moonlord. The Moonlord spawns. This fight shouldn't be too hard. I mean, freaking Astrum Deus was absolutely insane, but this is a vanilla boss we're talking about. With all the weapons that we've gathered from Calamity at our disposal, it shouldn't be too hard. We dodge the death laser like a gamer. I hit adrenaline and rage at the same time and absolutely decimate the top eye, and I die. Let's run it back, boys. I die again. This attempt, I destroy all 3 eyes. The 3 true Eye of Cthulhu's want me dead, but now I am working the core. Now, the problem is, in death mode, the Moonlord shoots his death laser even though his top eye is destroyed. So you have the true Eye of Cthulhu's and the death laser still. But that's not too much of an issue. The death laser is quite predictable, at least. I just keep my distance and continue to use the Entropic Claymore. I get adrenaline, but instantly get hit. Now, this is a very close fight. I got very low. For some reason, the boss health bar says he has much more health than he does, but trust me, he is almost dead. And we did it, boys. The Moonlord has been defeated. GG. So that's the end of the run, right, guys? No. That is only the beginning of Calamity mod. There is so much more after Moonlord, and I had no idea the pain that ensued me.
What? What am I supposed to do? I freaking can't. Wow. I am unraveling. Like, it's a freaking double dash, bullet hell of fire, a double dash, and then he spawns more fire. That goes the freaking opposite direction. Freaking hell. It's stupid. I mean, where am I supposed to freaking look? Like, what is even going on?